Thank you for listening to the Shanghai Community Fellowship Podcast. To find out more about the SCF community, listen to sermons, and upcoming events, visit us at shanghaifellowship.org.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ezio. Thank you, Isabella. Isabella is visiting us from Australia. There she goes. Isabella was a part of our community for many years, and then recently she moved to Australia, and she came back, and she's serving on her first weekend back. How about that, huh? That's phenomenal. Thank you, Isabella. And a big thank you to our awesome audio team who's been working behind the scenes, and we'll see how this microphone does in the next minute. Otherwise, I'm going to have to be Max and give my best teacher voice, so we'll see what we can do. All right, well, you already heard the announcement that we are in this series on generosity. You heard about how you can be connected to this series. We really encourage you. The paper bulletin that you received, it's got Sue's QR code. If you'd like to, you can use this. You can download it. We'll tell you how to do that. It's really helpful. You'll learn a lot of really good things, practical things, and how to practice generosity, kind of begin the practice of generosity. So I think you'll enjoy it. It'll be helpful because, I think there's nothing really stronger than realizing that with God's heart toward us being so generous, it just feels like a natural fit to follow Him in generosity. However, as many of us know, it's not always, while it's a natural fit in terms of God's presence and spirit, in terms of maybe the way we were raised, in terms of our own thoughts about money and values and valuables that came from who knows where, sometimes it's a little more difficult for us to be generous because we're dealing with a lot of stuff, right? And today, in today's message, we're going to talk about filters, biblical filters that we can use to kind of help us kind of adjust to being the generous person we would many of us, if not all of us, would like to be. So we're going to begin, of all places, in a passage, a part of the Bible from a book of the Bible called Ecclesiastes. And it might be one of those books of the Bible. The Bible is like a library of books, right? And 66 of them. And Ecclesiastes is in the Old Testament, that first more than first half, right in the middle of those. It may be a book that you don't always read very often. It's a little harder to read. But I'm just going to dive right in, as they say, and we're going to start in chapter 5, verse 8. Now I got to tell you that if you've read these, Ecclesiastes can be it can be a little dark. All right, it can be like heavy. It's like whoa. When you read the book of Ecclesiastes, when you're done, you're going to go, wow, I think I just need to go take a shower or something. I'm just wiped out here. But so hang with me. All right, it's going to get kind of heavy and serious at the beginning, and then we're going to you'll see we're going someplace. All right, so Ecclesiastes chapter 5. If you see the poor, all right, by the way, Ecclesiastes, most of it is written by a person who's referred to as the teacher or the critic. But at the very end of the book, you get the author coming together to put it all together for you. So you're listening to the voice of someone who's intending to challenge us. So here we go. Get ready to be challenged. If you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the fields. In other words, the king always wins. It's good to be the king. All right? Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless, he said. More about that in a moment, that phrase. As goods increase, verse 11, so do those who consume them. And what benefits are they to the owners except to feast their eyes on them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep. I've seen a grievous evil under the sun. Wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they will depart. I told you it's kind of heavy, right? And they take nothing from their toil so that they carry nothing in their hands. All right, here we go. So one of the things that you're going to read in Ecclesiastes, I think it's like some 40 different times, so it's a major idea, is this phrase that we caught part of it in this passage: meaningless, meaningless, utterly meaningless, everything is meaningless. It makes you want to rush right home this afternoon and read Ecclesiastes, doesn't it? All right? Now, I like what Dr. Tim Mackey does with this, the translation of this, because he says that this person, the critic or the teacher in Ecclesiastes, is not saying that life is meaningless. What he's really saying is that life is uncertain. And that's something that we can, I think, all of us relate to a little better. It's not that our lives or life is a meaningless thing, but so often life is uncertain, like a vapor, like smoke. It just comes through our hands, and we're looking for assurances, we're looking for certainties, but life rarely gives us the certainty that we are looking for. We ask ourselves the questions: what's going on? Why did this happen to me? Where's this going? Is this all going to work out or what? Am I in some really big trouble? Is the big horrible thing that I've been waiting for finally going to drop on me? What's going on here? Uncertainty, everything is uncertain. And what we often do, most of us, if not all of us, attempt to do is to fill that uncertainty with our money. I mean, because at least there's a sense that when we have money, our lives become less uncertain. Or at least that's the feel of it, right? That's the awareness of it that, wow, well, if I had more money, I think my life would be more certain. There's a little hook there, right? And so we go after it. We earn money, we get money, we save money, we build wealth, so our lives won't feel or be so uncertain. And yet, the author here, or the critic in Ecclesiastes, is reminding us of some very important truths that I'm sure all of us, as we go through these 1 through 4 or 5 now, that you'll say, yeah, I know, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that, I've experienced that, I know somebody that's happened to them, and just reminding us there's really no certainty in our money, and there's some big time problems when we seek to find certainty in life through our money, through our wealth, through our 401k, through our investments. It's just not there. It's not built for that, so to speak. So he writes, no matter how hard the worker works in the field, ultimately it is the monarchy which flourishes. In other words, as I said, at the end of the day, it's the king that collects the taxes. All right, at the end of the day, it's the king that ends up, it's the government, it's the leaders that end up with what we have. I remember years ago, quite a few years ago, when I was living in the U.S., I decided that in order to earn extra income, that I would get a license to sell life insurance and annuities. Now, telling you this, please do not ask me about life insurance and annuities after the service today. That was a long time ago, and I hardly knew anything when I passed the test, and I certainly don't know anything now. But the one thing that stands out to me in all of the training was this: when the teacher said, basically what you need to remember, whether you park it here or you park it there, you will always pay taxes. Whether you park it here until you die or you park it here until you retire, whether you don't pay taxes now, it doesn't mean you're not going to pay taxes then, because don't ever forget this: you will always pay taxes. And that's kind of that's number one. That we go and we go and we go and we pursue and we pursue and pursue, and our money just goes other places, especially to the king. Number two, he says, money is incapable of satisfying the hungers and the thirst of those of us who are devoted to it. And the oddity of it and the sadness of it is that the more that we give ourselves to pursuing wealth so that we will feel less uncertain, the more uncertain we feel. As we watch our 401k, as we watch our investments, as we pull the app out, as you look at our bank statement, or maybe some of us, we'll have students here, when you're a student, when I was a student, I really didn't have to watch my investments very closely because I had no investments. I just watched my bank account go down, 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 and down. But still we look to these things, we look to our money and our wealth, these things, and the more we become devoted to them, the worse off we become. The irony is that it doesn't do that for us, right? I like this quote from comedian and author or actor Jim Carrey. He said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and everything they ever dreamed of so that they can see that that's not the answer." And if you know something about Jim Carrey's story, he started out very poor. Just came through, and he kind of built his whole career at the beginning to build wealth. It wasn't just to be a famous actor, but it was also to build a tremendous amount of wealth, and this is where he landed. There is also no shortage of people, and this is the third thing the critic here, the teacher in Ecclesiastes has to say. There's also no shortage of people attempting to consume whatever it is that we have. I read this in preparing for today, the stories of people that win the lottery in the U.S. All right, I'm sure other countries have lotteries, but that's what I know better because that's where I'm from. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of sad stories about the people who win tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. Most of that goes bad, actually fairly quickly. And there's just multiple very tragic stories. One from a couple named Willie and Donna Seeley, who in 2013 won a $450 million US dollar jackpot. $450 million. Within a year, they came to call it the curse. The curse, because they said everyone we'd ever been related to or remotely related to, people that we were not related to, sought us, harassed us, pursued us. You can't believe it. He gave this advice, Willie gave this advice to the next big lottery winner. He said, first thing you need to do is get yourself lost. Disappear. Lose your phone number, leave your house, move to a different city, make sure that no one can track you down, and do it as soon as possible while you still can. No track, no shortage of numbers of people who will seek us when we have wealth. That's what the teacher's observing. Number 4, the teacher observes that the pursuit of wealth not only brings oppression to others, but it also damages us. Paul says in 1 Timothy 6:10 that the love of money is the root of all evil. This often gets more quoted because it's often quoted as money is the root of all evil. Wow, money is not a bad thing, right? It's the love of it. It's the love and pursuit of money because, as Jesus would say, he actually puts these things together. He says, God and money cannot occupy the same space in our lives. And this is something about money that just puts itself in a place where it attempts to give us a certainty that only our Father in heaven can do. And that's such a subtle thing that we often are not aware that that's what we're doing until we lose our money or until we have a downturn in a market or until our investments don't end out like we hoped, and we realize how much we were hoping in our wealth and in our income. Money love is bigger and way more damaging than what we realize. And as I said, it's very, very subtle. I'm sure many of us in this room could tell stories within our own extended families of the way money has ruined the lives of family members. It's ruined our families or extended family. That money and the pursuit of wealth, it breaks us. It breaks our families. It breaks marriages. It breaks businesses. It breaks organizations. It's such a dangerous thing to hold in our hands. Number 5, the teacher said, keeping our wealth. He talked about keeping our wealth or keeping our neighbor. Keeping our wealth or keeping our neighbor. And he reminds us that we were originally called to keep one another, not to keep money. You see the difference there. We were originally called to keep one another, not to keep money. And there are times, he said, the teacher said, I can see where hoarding of wealth actually harmed the people who hoarded it, who attempted to do this. And we've forgotten that we were called as God's people, as God's representative on the earth, to care for each other and to use our money and to use our wealth and use our resources to care for each other and to be generous with what we have, not just our money, but our time, our skills, our abilities. And it's beautiful when we do that. And that's happening now in our community and all over the world in God's community. It's happening today. Jesus tells a story about a man who built 2 barns, right? It's a very famous parable from Luke chapter 12. And the man who's got money is growing and pursuing, and up it goes, and he's going to build. There's the man and his 2 barns. He said, I'm doing so well, I'm growing so quickly, I'm building so quickly, and I'm building wealth so quickly, I'm going to build another barn. And again, please don't hear me say that wealth is a problem. We're going to talk about that in a moment, because wealth is given to us to enjoy, but the man here is making the mistake that what was entrusted to him was not for others to use, to be generous with others. I'm going to hold on to it because I'm going to live a long time, and I'm going to live a really great life, and I'm going to be able to pay for that great life. And he failed to see that he was a keeper of his neighbor. He was a keeper. And lastly, it's equally grievous, the teacher would say, to live our whole lives with nothing to show for it. To live our whole lives with nothing to show for it. Also equally grievous. You know, I think over the years, and I can probably put myself in all 3 of these categories, that when it comes to money and following Jesus, we tend to maybe we tend to be sometimes too strict and too rigid, or we become too loose and too like whatever, or as Goldilocks said, we can do it just right. Just right. You see, I think what we do is because we want to honor God in our giving, but we're not really sure what to do about this and how to do this and how to go about it. We get kind of real rigid about it. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save this much, and we become like austere. You know, we're going to live on a bread and water diet. We're going to we're going to ride a bicycle. We're going to we're going to empty out our bank accounts, and we do the very, very extreme austere things because we think, that's what I'm supposed to do. Or we go the other direction and we just don't pay any attention to it at all. We're just like, whatever, the money comes in, the money goes out, I don't know where it goes, I'm not really paying any attention to that, I'm not really tracking that. Sometimes I give, sometimes I don't know, I'm just got to, I'll just see what happens next. And we just get very, very loose about it. Or we can, and this is, I think, where I'm going to spend the rest of the time, what we can do is listen. What we can do is listen to the voice of our Father in heaven by His Spirit with what He has entrusted to us in this season and in this time of our lives. Father God, you have put me here. I live in China. This is my job. This is my source of income. This is how you've skilled and gifted me. I am capable of earning this. You've entrusted this wealth to me. Last year, I got an inheritance. I'm now 10 million, whatever, renminbi richer. This is my wealth, what you have entrusted to me. How do you want me to manage what you have put into my hands? And this may be the piece that it may be the most important piece when we go to answer the question, what should I do? How should I honor God in my generosity? What does it mean for me to be generous? It's the listening part that we're often missing. And I like what authors, the author Doolittle, Cameron Doolittle, which isn't that kind of ironic? Cameron Doolittle wrote a book on generous giving. Don't you think that's kind of funny that his last name was Doolittle, and he wrote a book on generous giving? But anyways, I don't want to pick on Cameron. I don't know him personally, but he wrote a really fun book, and he gives these filters, all right, to help us. I'll give you all 4, then we'll go one by one. He gives us the filter of enjoyment. He talks about the filter of contentment. They all come from the Bible. The filter of fairness and the filter of faith. So if you've never seen this verse before, this might be worth the cost of the ticket you paid today to come into the. You didn't pay a ticket to come in. I'm just kidding. All right. Verse 1 Timothy 6:17, it says, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain." Oh, so far you're like, oh yeah, that's what Pastor Dale, that's what you've been saying. But to put their hope in God, right? And then he says this, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. That God has put wealth in our hands so that we can enjoy it. Now, I don't know about you guys. We're all of us in this room. We have different religious backgrounds, faith backgrounds. Some of us come from a Christian background. Some don't. That's right. So I know my story. But in my particular faith journey and where I came from, I don't think anyone ever told me that God gave me money so I could enjoy it. I don't remember anybody ever saying that or anything like that. God gave me money so I could be miserable and get rid of it as soon as possible. God gave me money so I could give it away and be poor like everybody else. And I never got that concept that what we're reading here, that God puts things, He puts money, He puts wealth, He puts resources in our hands, and He's a good Father, and He wants us to enjoy what He has given us. The Bible says in another place that every good and perfect gift comes from our Father. Now I'm going to say this, some of you know where I'm going with this. Please don't let a certain kind of teaching about wealth and prosperity ruin this for you as it has for me. I just went to the other extreme that I didn't say, I don't think God wants me to have anything. Please don't let some teaching ruin that for you. To know that your Father in heaven wants to put good gifts into your life so that you can enjoy them and that you can feel the joy of having provision. That's a great thing and a beautiful thing as long as we acknowledge the providential care of our God in heaven. And remember, Jesus and disciples, although they were not rich, they did carry a money bag around with them, and somebody owned a boat, apparently. Paul had enough money to live in Rome for quite a long time and take care of all of his expenses. He had enough wealth somewhere in some way that he took care of himself for quite a while, and was able to entertain people as well. And then you've got, of course, Joseph of Arimathea, that when Jesus died on the cross and they looked for a place to bury him, he had a tomb to offer. That was a very, very expensive tomb that was offered to Jesus, and Joseph was one of his followers. It's time to let go. When it comes to money, it's time to let go of the guilt and to let go of the idols. To let go of the guilt and let go of the idols. Back to Dr. Tim Mackey, like this part, especially commenting on Ecclesiastes. So what we read here is this: stop worrying and choose to enjoy a good conversation with a friend or your wife. There's another passage that says with your wife, and I'm doing that. Enjoy the sun on your face. It's in the Bible, Ecclesiastes 11. Enjoy the sun on your face. And a good meal with people you care about. And that's what's going on here. God has put resources in your hands so that you can enjoy a walk in the park when you can, a time with people that you love and care for, and the beauty of a sunny day with the warmth shining upon you. Go ahead and enjoy that. That's His blessing to you. And that's a filter for when we have wealth. A second filter is this: it's contentment. It's contentment. Paul would write, the same Paul, the apostle that we've been quoting here, he would write, godliness with contentment is great gain. But he links those two together. It's not just contentment. It's a God-centered relationship, a God-directed life and contentment kind of they come together and are linked and are inseparable. And what God does for us in the area of contentment is that He gives to us a longing in our hearts that only can be satisfied in Him. So many times, what's at the heart of our discontent is that we are longing for something, possibly thinking that money that can buy will fill that something in us that's so unhappy, so discontent. But we read, again, the teacher in Ecclesiastes that tells us that it's God that has put that there so that we would seek Him. That we would seek Him. Not our money, not the things that money can buy. Sure, it's tempting, very tempting to do that. But it's only God can meet that longing in our hearts. Love, here, I'll just read it for you. He said, He has made everything beautiful. That is, God has made everything beautiful in its time. And He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. I really enjoyed this from author C.S. Lewis. On this verse, he said, these things, the things we call beauty, the memory of our own past, are good images of what we really desire. But if these things are mistaken for the thing itself, they turn into dumb idols, breaking the hearts of their worshipers, because they are not the thing itself. Anything, and I'll add this line if I dare to do so with C.S. Lewis, but I'll go, anything that money can buy, they're not the thing. Those things are only and should be only the scent of a flower we have not found, the echo of a tune we have not heard, or news from a country we have never yet visited. Because God has put that in our heart, the desire for a beauty and a flower and a life and a city that only can be met in Him. We try to fill it with other things. We try to create it with other ways, including our money. And it's a common mistake to make. I like to think of it as a holy discontent. A holy discontent. When we learn that contentment isn't really related to what we have or what we don't have. And that contentment will allow us to enjoy this present moment, not rushing on to the next one. And it's contentment that protects us from the love of money, the contentment that Lewis is talking about, the contentment, the beauty that the teacher from Ecclesiastes is talking about. Number 3, fairness. When Paul is collecting an offering for all the churches worldwide in Jerusalem, that's where it's going to go, because the brothers and sisters, the fellow Christians, are struggling in poverty because of persecution, and so all the other churches are going to send an offering to help them and take care of them. And Paul says it's an equality thing. He said we're all going to kind of share in this together. And we ask ourselves the question, how could my abundance supply someone else's need? And as far as filters go, the last one he talked about was faith. And we are reminded again and again, as we do today, that our life in following Jesus is a life of faith. It's a faith life. It's a faith walk. That's what we're trusting Him day by day and week by week and moment by moment, in season and out of season. We're always trusting Him. We're always trusting Him with our wealth, with our jobs, with our vocations. Always trusting Him. I remember when Becky and I were younger, coming out of our 20s, all right? And you know, there are some professions that you can get right into them right out of university, and you can probably start making a pretty nice income. I mean, relatively speaking, depending maybe on part of the world you're living in. Some professions aren't like that. Some take a little longer to kind of get, they need a little longer runway. And so Becky and I in our 20s had very little. And I'm not exaggerating when I say very little. You check that bank account. How's your investments going? I've already told you. What was it last month? 0. How's it doing this month? Still 0. All right, so we get into on it. We're kind of struggling through our 20s, right? And like all of our peers, just kind of paying the bills, living month by month, praying that we don't have a crisis, and we're totally in over our heads, just praying our way through our 20s, and we kind of get into our 30s, and actually the money starts to increase. Now 0 it's not 0 anymore. It's actually a little more than 0. And now it keeps going up, and now I see in my bank account a number I have never seen before in my bank account. And I said, this is amazing. And so it's just going up and going, and God is helping, and I'm earning money, and I have some opportunities to make some money, and my wealth is building, and I get to a place, because my big goal was to buy a house. And in my 20s, I wouldn't. At the rate I'm going, I will never get there. But getting into my 30s, I'm getting a little hopeful. I could maybe we could do this. And so I've got some money set aside for this, right? It's not a lot, but it could probably get me at least going. And I'm praying, and I'm like I'm ready. I'm excited. And I start to consider and feel very strongly, actually, talking to Becky, that we are supposed to repurpose this money that we have been saving for a down payment on a house. We are supposed to repurpose this money for something completely different. And when I first considered that thought, I said to God, literally out loud, it's a prayer. That's what you do when you pray, right? You talk to God, and there's a listening and there's a talking. And I said, God, are you aware that that's a very bad economic principle? Just giving everything away, just spending your down payment. And then I said, and God, do you know how long it took me to save that money? God, we're talking like 10 plus years. Are you seriously asking me? In other words, you're not looking at Mr. Obedient here, like, let's just do that right now. No, not happening. And I'm being very honest here. I really struggled because and at one point in my prayer, we're very glad that God is gracious and loving, filled with loving kindness, because I said to God, it's my money. It's mine. And he said, and I gave it to you. And I knew that was right. I knew that was true. I knew all that had happened to allow us to gain that wealth, the small amount of wealth that we had, was really a gift of God. I don't understand me. I was working hard. Becky was working hard. We were all in. But that really to have gotten where we got was a gift from God. And that really became my challenge. It's mine. It's mine. And sometimes regularly, our Father brings us back to a place where he reminds us, it's not yours, it's his. And as I read recently, and again in preparation for today, maybe the question isn't how much I should give, but how much I should keep. Not how much should I give, but how much should I keep. I like Paul says something here one more time back to Paul. Because he says, because I think when he says this, he's actually referring to something from Ecclesiastes. Because of the use of the word vanity or vain. Because vanity or vain is another translation for meaningless or uncertain. He says to the Corinthians, therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm, let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. What you've done for Jesus is not meaningless. What you've done in the kingdom is not uncertain. Again and again, the teacher in Ecclesiastes said, everything is uncertain under the sun. Everything is uncertain under the sun. Paul comes along and says, time out. Everything is certain in the sun. Everything is certain in the sun. And as we wrap up things today, I'm reminded, as the teacher from Ecclesiastes reminds us at the very end of the book, he reminds us that at the end of the day, with all the uncertainties and all the trusting in God, that we can lean on him, not on our own understanding, but in all our ways acknowledge him, so that he will and can direct our paths. He tells us to honor God. At the end of the day, live a life that honors God, that shows him the respect that is due to him. Live this way, and do that with humility, and do that with trust, with our money. With our money. One more thing before we close. I felt, as getting ready to walk up here today, I really wanted to emphasize this point for someone. Perhaps you're struggling because you thought that the sacrifice that you made to pursue Jesus has been in vain. You wasted your time. It became meaningless. The price that you paid was too high. You're frustrated, you're angry, it's confusing. I put everything in. I gave everything. And it just feels so meaningless. What you have done for Jesus, what you have committed to him, is not meaningless. And it is not uncertain. And it was not done in vain. You may not yet see the fruit of your life and the choices that you made out of trust. You may not yet see the results of that, but you will. You will. And God, your Father, will show himself faithful because he is. Father, I pray today, I thank you, Lord, for we are here to honor your name. It's a Sunday afternoon in Shanghai, China. We could be anywhere. But we chose to be here with people of like faith that just wanted to spend an hour and a half talking about Jesus and singing his praises. So, Father, I pray that in each life in this room, every story of trust, every vocation, all of our marketable skills and all of our wealth or the lack of it, all of our hopes for tomorrow, and help us to see and listen and be as generous as you have been with us. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.